Hi there, welcome back. We're going to be having a look at the All Island Strategic Rail Review yet again. This time we're going to be going on to the last part of the recommendations, the customer experience recommendations. So customer experience cuts across all aspects of the railways across the island. Customer satisfaction is driven by a wide range of factors that can affect all stages of a typical journey. This journey includes multiple stages, which are journey planning, ticket purchase, and affordability, the journey to the station, experience at the station, experience on the train, interchange and egress, the journey to destination, and post-journey customer care, such as lost property, compensation, etc. To deliver a good customer experience, it is therefore important to consider each part of a customer's journey and work to ensure this journey is as seamless as possible. Well, yeah, this ties into you can make the experience attractive from the outside, but if someone has a bad experience, even once, it can ruin their whole view of like public transport as a whole, or certain components of it. Um, so those stages, journey planning, um, that one is important, and I think, I mean, I know a lot of people um will just use Google Maps to plan their journeys, and that's fine, that's good, but it can be a little too focused on um, getting there as fast as possible, which is often what most people are concerned about. But sometimes you want to know what the other options are as well. I think TFI has a decent uh, app and website for journey planning. I haven't used them a whole lot, but I know Irish Rail has a very good um, journey planning tool on their website. You can put in your starting station, your destination station, and it'll tell you all the ways you can get there and the timetables and such. And then ticket purchasing. I mean, I will say that it's slightly inconvenient with Irish Rail at the moment, where if you need to go somewhere long distance, what you end up having to do is buy the ticket on their website, but then go collect it from a machine. There's no there's no mobile tickets available at the moment. Not that I'm aware of, not since the last time I took a long distance train. With the Dart, it's pretty seamless though, because you just tap on, tap off, or any of the commuter services that are um, within the range of the Leap card. You can get as far as Balbriggan if you go up north into Fingal, and Leap card will work there. And that's very simple. And also quite affordable at the moment. I think after COVID, to encourage people to take public transport more, they reduced the prices. So what is it like? Oh, I'm not sure what the prices are at the moment, but I mean, it was always pretty affordable anyway, because it's capped per day and per week. Journey to the station. I mean, that can depend where you're located. If you're located within walking distance of a Dart line, then that's that's a very simple, or any station really. That's a very simple fare. You just walk in. If you're up, say if you're in like Fingal, up in like Lusk or Rush, it's a bit more difficult because the station isn't really located in either town. There's a car park there, so a lot of people end up driving and then parking and then taking the train in, which is, I guess it's convenient for them, but kind of it takes away somewhat from the whole experience. If you still need a car to get to the train station, then is that good public transport? I know there's a bus, but bus timetables don't always suit. Well, I think the main problem is that in the morning it's full of school children. As in, there's just not enough buses in the morning that they probably need to run some more. Then experience at the station. I mean, yeah, it can vary widely from station to station. Some are great, some not so great. Whether that be like teenagers loitering around, making old ladies feel uncomfortable, or elevators being out of order, or there's a plethora of different things that could be wrong with the station. I think they're mostly fine, but there's definitely room for improvement. Experience on the train, I think it's generally pretty positive, or like maybe not positive, but yeah, I think it's generally pretty positive. I mean, it depends on the train you're taking and what time. I've definitely had some negative experiences on like the Dart. There was one time I was on the Dart. It was late at night. There was like there wasn't many people on it, and one of the guys in my carriage was smoking a cigarette. Um, and then but otherwise the Dart, I've mostly had a good experience on it. I've been taking I grew up taking it a lot. And then like the kind of commuter rail services, the only problem I've ever had with them is like a lack of seating, which just means that they need to run more or longer trains, and they're a bit noisy because they're diesel. The kind of intercity trains, I've always had a very good experience on. They're comfortable. You can book your seats. Um, I think they got rid of catering, but maybe they've brought it back now. It's been a while since I've been in an intercity train. Interchange and egress. Yeah, so interchanging. I generally had a good experience on that. If there's a train that is expecting people to change from another train onto it, it'll usually wait. I think there's only been a couple times where it didn't, and that was because I think it just wasn't a service that was expecting uh, people to change over to it. And then post journey customer care. Well, I've never lost anything on the trains. I lost a leap card on the bus once, but I never got that back. I just cancelled it anyway. Compensation. Yeah, I'm not sure about that one either. I've never had an experience where I needed compensation, so I can't speak for that personally. But I think for the most part, they're doing okay. I think the main areas to improve on are definitely the stations and the ticket experience. While customer satisfaction with passenger rail services is generally high in both jurisdictions, yeah, I'd say I'm mostly satisfied. International benchmarking suggests that current customer offer is behind comparative European operators. Um, the only trains I've really taken in Europe were in Sweden and Germany. And actually, no, I took them in Slovakia as well. The trains in Sweden are pretty punctual and pretty fast as well. It was just a short commuter service. And then the ones in Germany, they suffered a lot of delays. But when you were actually on the train, it was pretty comfortable. And there was so many of them that I never had to wait too long for another one, even if the one I was planning to take was delayed. Because they have that what, like €50 a month ticket. So as long as you're not taking a high speed train, like an intercity train, you can kind of just hop on anything if you have this ticket. It's very useful for just getting around. In Slovakia, well, the one I took there, I think, was RegioJet. It was one of those like budget trains. I was just going to, where was I going? Czechia. That was a pretty nice train though. It was like one of those trains with the like the cabins with a tree and tree seats facing each other. But I remember it being pretty affordable and a pretty easy experience. At the time of writing, for example, onboard catering is quite limited, and many stations lack adequate amenities for the size of the communities they serve, such as Lurgan. Yeah, station amenities can, yeah, that is, they can be a bit lacking. A lot of stations don't have any kind of bathroom in them. Some of them have vending machines, but even then, they're not always in order or stocked up. Yeah, the station facilities are generally, I mean, unless it's like a large station, like a central station or one of the main stations in the city, those will usually have decent amenities, but the smaller ones, it's very limited. Many topics considered in this section were highlighted in hundreds of responses to the public consultation that supported this review. In particular, respondents highlighted concerns about accessibility, integration, affordability, cleanliness, and antisocial behavior. Some of the concerns highlighted in the public consultation could and should be addressed in the short term. Accessibility, yeah, that will require some investment in all of the stations and not just, a one-time investment, but ongoing in terms of actually maintaining the accessibility of them. Integration is kind of vague. I'm not really sure what they mean by that. Affordability is, yeah, that falls into the question I posed before about, uh, public transport, should it turn a profit? Because for it to turn a profit often involves charging a fair bit when, it's in the name, it's public. It should, I'm of the mind that it should serve the public, and to serve the public, it should be affordable. And if that involves subsidizing it heavily, maybe that's what you got to do. I mean, look at Luxembourg. All their public transport is free. I know Luxembourg is a fairly wealthy country, but it kind of shows that they recognize, look, this is a service for the public. It should be accessible to the public, and in order to be accessible, it has to be affordable. And what's more affordable than free? And then even just recently, I think it was yesterday or today, a city in France, I forget the name, um, they made public transport free for everyone in the city. Cleanliness, um, you can kind of get away with it a little bit, but it does make it more attractive for people be that wouldn't normally use it, as in people that wouldn't normally take long journeys. If a station is dirty and stinky, they're not going to be inclined to do it. That or make that choice again. Indeed, there are already many initiatives underway in both jurisdictions to improve customer experience, such as investments in integrated ticketing systems and new rolling stock. Yeah, that new rolling stock. I'm looking forward to those new Dart Plus trains that are coming from Alstom. Many of the interventions outlined in this section will be seen as business as usual as Railway continuously improves its customer offer. Yeah, that's good. I think it should be seen as business as usual. It shouldn't be something to, make a big fanfare of. A good customer experience is one that you don't notice, and a great one is one that really stands out. And I think it's okay to, you know, strive for good customer service. It doesn't have to be, big and flashy. It can, if it is reliably consistent and reliably good, then that can stand for itself. As fully integrated, vertically aligned operators, Earnard Air and TransLink are well placed to deliver a seamless customer experience. Well, yeah, they're both state-owned rail operators, and they own all of their rails. It's not like in the US where it's mostly owned by like fucking private freight companies. They own all their stations, they own all their rails, they own all their rolling stock. There's no man in the middle to deal with. They just have to put some money into it. Many of the factors that drive customer satisfaction are monitored by public service contracts in both jurisdictions. The contract in place in Ireland imposes penalties on Earnard Éireann if they consistently fail to deliver good customer service. Really? I didn't know that. I mean, it makes sense. Strategic options. Many of the infrastructure-led interventions described earlier in this chapter will help improve several key elements of service quality, including the speed, frequency, and reliability of services. In addition, there are opportunities to improve the wider passenger experience by improving the availability of information in advance, during and after each journey, especially during periods of planned and unplanned disruption, particularly for those with disabilities, which make it harder to access information and services. Yeah, information is a very valuable resource. Um, yeah, and it's so easy to access real-time information and whatnot in your phone, but it's not always very accessible for someone with visual impairment or an older person that has difficulty operating like a smartphone, or even someone that's deaf, um, that can't hear like the train announcements. So there's different ways to go about this, like obviously making, like especially the main stations having those big kind of information boards with real-time information, and then also scheduled departures is great. But then on the individual platforms, and this especially applies to smaller stations, those information kind of um, signs that they have, like the electronic ones, I think those are really good. The ones that they already have, they there'll be an announcement if something happens, but then there'll also be a text announcement on the digital information board. So whether if you're deaf, you can read it. If you're blind, you can hear it. And if you're old, you can hear and see it. Well, maybe not if you're deaf and blind and old. But, there's options there, which is the key point. The only thing is that sometimes, I mean, it's mostly pretty good, but I've seen those digital information boards be broken or down sometimes. I know though in the last few years they've been upgrading a lot of them, which is good. Targeting investments that add capacity to reduce overcrowding, such as longer trains and more frequent passenger services. And that's what I said earlier about the commuter services that go outside of Dublin. It's at peak hours especially, they can be very busy, and you can end up standing on them for like half an hour or your entire journey. So yeah, longer and more frequent trains would be good. But when you try to add more frequency, then timetabling can become more difficult if there's a lot of congestion on a line. Using cascaded rolling stock to deliver more frequent clock face timetable services. Yeah, I mean that would certainly be a benefit. maintaining a consistently high quality cleaning and maintenance regime across the whole railway estate. Yeah, I my main experience would be with darts, and they're generally clean, but I've certainly seen darts, especially like in the evening, where there's just rubbish kind of thrown around or coffee spilled in the ground. Or I saw a dart once, where one of the cushions on the seat just had a big gash in it. Um, so I of course avoided sitting on it. Ensuring actually also sometimes it doesn't happen often, but a few times I've been on darts where one of the doors was broken and I had to like run to another door so that I didn't miss the train. I'm sure the driver would have waited anyway, but you don't want to keep everyone waiting. Ensuring stations and rolling stock are attractive, accessible, warm, well lit, and equipped with facilities to enable customers to undertake their journeys. Yeah, stations. Um, I certainly, I, yeah. I mean, it depends on the station. Some of them can be pretty cold. I know the station up in Scaries doesn't have very good heating, or not since the last time I was there. Uh, but the trains I've been on have all been pretty well heated. The darts get very warm in the winter. They have like a heater under the seat, so if you kind of rest your hands on your legs and like hold them down a little bit, they get nice and warm from the warm air rising up. And facilities, yeah. Well, so the commuter services and the intercity services generally have toilets on board, but the darts don't have any. And you're usually going a shorter distance with them, but it might be nice if they had them, just in case you need them. Providing a wider range of hot and cold catering at larger stations and on longer distance services. Yeah, I mean, I don't know what they mean by larger stations because most of the large stations have some kind of catering already, but certainly on longer distance services, it's good to have the option to get something to eat, and they can make a nice little bit of money on the side doing that too. Providing, maintaining, and cleaning high quality facilities such as washrooms at stations and on longer distance services. Yeah, so at stations, the larger stations generally have okay bathrooms. The smaller ones usually don't have any. So if they could, I don't know how they'd add them because some stations are quite small, like in their footprint, so there may not be much room for expansion. But it'd be nice if more stations had toilets. Longer distance trains, the toilets are usually alright, I found. I don't use them too often, but anytime I have, they've been mostly fine. The only issue is the train rocking a bit, but you kind of expect that in Irish Rail. Maybe they could get trains that are smoother. I'm sure that involves realigning the tracks as well. Providing Wi-Fi and charging facilities at stations and on board trains to enable passengers to work and enjoy online leisure activities on board services. Yeah, so I generally don't use the train Wi-Fi because you have to sign up with like an email address, and I have so much data on my phone that I don't need it. But the charging facilities, they're generally pretty good. I've used them a couple times, um, on trains anyway. I don't know if the Dart has any. I don't think it does. No, actually, do any of the trains have any? I know the intercity ones do. The commuter trains have any? I'm not sure. It would be good if they did though. All the buses do now. Anytime I use the Wi-Fi though, I mean, if you're going on like an intercity train, the connection can be a bit spotty, which is partly why I didn't use it as well. Providing car parking, secure bike storage at stations and on trains, and high quality interchanges with public transport and walking and cycling networks at stations. Yeah, car parking. I mean, I think it should be discouraged driving to and from stations. I think instead people should have other options to get there, that there should be bus services that can cater to the people that live far enough that they need to drive. Secure bike storage is a good one at stations and on trains. I mean, like, there's no dedicated bike storage on darts or commuter services. They generally have like the kind of openish areas where you can park a buggy, and people often put their bikes there if there's no buggies. But then on the intercity services, you can book a spot for your bike, but you can only put two bikes per train, and it's like that's really not enough. You know, that's why. Where is he? Our buddy up here. Let's find him. That's why our buddy here has brought a folding bike, because he knows that there's not enough spaces on this intercity train for his bike. So he's got a folding bike that he can fit into the luggage racks, because that's the best solution for him in this time. Bike storage stations, though, I think most stations, I mean, it depends where the station is. Smaller stations perhaps won't have as much bike storage, especially in the city where the stations are physically smaller as well. But the larger stations tend to have decent bike storage. High quality interchanges of public transport and walking and cycling networks at stations. Um, I would guess that by high quality interchanges of public transport, they mean having like other bus stops or Lewis stops within a short walking distance of the train station, so that you can um, interchange between them easily. Connolly is a good example of that because they have the Lewis stop right outside, and then like Dublin Bus and the Bus Éireann stops. Not many other stations are that well served though. I guess it's mostly the large stations that will be served in that way. Galway has those services as well, and Sligo and Cork. So I guess yeah, all the main stations generally do. But the smaller ones, not so much. Ensuring the railway state is accessible for passengers with mobility needs. Yeah, well, yeah, that ties into accessibility. Well, that is accessibility, and that can entail, building ramps or lifts are a better solution. Just because it can be difficult to take it up a ramp if you're on your own. And also accessibility for trains is a bit shite at the moment. Basically, I mean they're all more or less level with the platform, but there's always a gap between the train and the platform, and so if you're in a wheelchair, you have to get like a member of staff to place a ramp so that you can wheel onto the train. And they're pretty good for doing that. I've only ever seen one instance where no one came to help a guy and he had to pull himself onto the dart. Um, but really, they should have some kind of automated system for like extending a small ramp from the train onto the platform so that if someone is waiting for it, they can just roll on. They don't need to wait for someone else to come help them. Many of the interventions listed above are being pursued by multiple agencies in the rail and wider transport industry, and there have been significant improvements delivered in recent years, notably contactless and integrated payment systems. Yeah, I mean, I guess contactless refers mostly to um, the Leap card. Planning and information. The quality, timeliness, and accuracy of information provided to customers and potential customers is a key driver of customer satisfaction. Yeah, for sure. Timeliness, I guess. Timely information would be real-time information. And I think it's generally pretty reliable. Not always for the buses, because sometimes Dublin bus just disappears, and I'm sure bus Éireann as well. This issue is especially important during periods of disruption, when customer anxiety is often at its highest and when information is often at its scarcest. Yeah, but I've found Irish Rail to be pretty good at providing information. Whether you're on the platform or on the train or heading to the station. Both jurisdictions should continue to invest in online in-station and onboard information systems and leverage opportunities presented by the latest technology. For example, many onboard customer information systems also provide information about crowding in different carriages, toilet occupancy, the status of connecting services, and notices about events. Yeah, well, in just recently, in the last, 2 years, they've been installing a lot of those new information system boards into darts, and they've been really good. They've been much better than before. Before it was just these like shite little LED strips at the end of each carriage, and they were okay, but these new ones provide a lot more information and they're much more reliable. Sometimes, I mean, those LED ones were off half the time, and then sometimes it was just it was backwards. Pretty sure I saw it backwards a few times. Additionally, both jurisdictions should work with operators to enable them to provide real-time timetables and performance data through advanced programming interfaces, APIs. This will enable developers to build applications that provide customers better information to enable them to plan their end-to-end journeys. Yeah, well, I mean, there's already a couple of third-party Transport for Ireland apps for trains and for buses, but even the official app is decent as well. Um, but yeah, definitely APIs are good for allowing developers to build their own apps because, someone might build a great app with features that are missing from the TFI app and can obviously serve users in the short term and potentially be implemented into the official one in the long term. It's a great way to inspire people to improve upon what already is there. Give them the tools and they'll use them. Stations. While many stations on the island of Ireland provide a welcoming environment for customers, the station experience varies significantly across the island. Not all stations provide the ticketing, waiting, alighting, and interchanging services that most customers have come to expect from modern public transport. So yeah, some stations, especially in the evening or on weekends, the ticketing office will be closed and there'll just be a machine, which machines are usually fine, but sometimes if especially for tourists or older people that may not be as familiar with the system, having a person to talk to is very helpful. Yeah, waiting rooms are it varies from station to station. Some have indoor seating areas that you can wait in, some only outdoor, and even some it's all uncovered as well. So there is a bit of variability. I think having some at least covered waiting areas is like the bare minimum, but if you have indoor ones, even better because it can get pretty cold in the winter. I'm not into the negatives, well, sometimes, but rarely. but it's a wet cold, and it really soaks into your bones. Alighting, that's one I mentioned before. The trains are often level with the platform, but there's a gap between them, and so even if you're not in a wheelchair, that can cause problems. I slipped one time, and I mean, the train wasn't moving; it was parked, so I was fine. But one of my legs went into the gap between the train and the platform, and I had one leg on the platform and one in the gap. I had to like lift myself out, which could have been dangerous if the train was moving. Luckily, it was a terminus station, so it was waiting a few minutes before it would depart. Interchanging services, I think they're mostly okay, but I'm sure there's some improvements that I'm just not aware of. Research shows that the station experience is a particularly important driver for longer distance passengers who tend to spend more time at stations. That's for sure. Yeah, longer distance trains, I will often turn up early, um, like at least 30 minutes early, just because I'm anxious about there being delays in my arrival at the station. The potential for there to be delays in the station as well, whether that's collecting my tickets or finding my platform or whatever. So I end up will spend at least 20 minutes or something waiting around in the station. And I don't really want to be standing on a hard marble floor for that length of time. The accessibility of stations is also critically important to passengers with mobility needs, and wayfinding is important for passengers who are unfamiliar with the railway. Yeah, signposting is very important, especially for tourists, as they may not all speak English and probably not Irish either. So one great one great way to make signposting accessible for everyone is use of symbols. A symbol for a train, a symbol for a toilet, a symbol for an information office or desk, and stuff like that. Having clear um, signing with you know easy to grasp um, symbols on them is a great way for making stations more accessible for people that don't speak the language or may have a poor grasp of it. Accessibility, yeah. I know, I mean, like most stations will have an extra wide um, ticket, well, like a turnstile, but the barriers. You'll have an extra wide one for people in wheelchairs or for parents with buggies that they can use those. But I'm sure there's certainly other issues in regards to accessibility, like with staircases and ramps and lifts. Each jurisdiction has a rolling program of station enhancements and renewals. It is common for enhancements and new stations to be tied to local investment in growth and development, which can help raise the quality of the built environment to the benefit of all parties. Stations also offer opportunities to generate revenue from customers by providing retail and hospitality services. These services not only increase customer choice, but also help build the case for further investment in station renewals. Yeah, for sure. I mean, like, all the large stations generally have some kind of cafe and maybe like a little newsagents. The smaller ones, that may not be possible to fit into them, but at least include like a vending machine so you can get a drink or maybe a packet of crisps. Rolling stock. One of the most significant drivers of customer satisfaction is the quality, maintenance, and cleanliness of rolling stock. That's for sure. I mean, if you're on a train and it's all the seats are dirty, you're not going to want to sit down. In addition to the quality of the onboard experience that is provided by rolling stock, the size of the fleet often drives the regularity and frequency of timetables, which is another key driver of customer satisfaction. Absolutely. If a service is regular and frequent and reliable and it's accessible to you, you're gonna use it. It's gonna be those factors make it convenient, and if it's convenient, you're gonna want to use it. Many of the infrastructure-led interventions described earlier in this chapter, not only would it be convenient but also enjoyable, a pleasant experience. Many of the infrastructure-led interventions described earlier in this chapter will only deliver their full benefits if they are supported by high-quality, low-carbon, high-performance rolling stock. This presents some challenges in timing the delivery of interventions. For example, how much of the in-road air and intercity fleet, which is entirely driven by diesel traction, is relatively new and will not need to be replaced for at least a decade. This suggests the near-term focus of electrification should be on DART and enterprise services, as rolling stock for these services is due for renewal earlier. And yeah, the DARTs for sure are getting old. That's why DART Plus, the whole DART Plus program involves ordering a new rolling stock for the whole network, not just the new parts. And those trains look pretty nice, actually. I've just seen one or two short clips about them on Alstom's YouTube page, but they look good. Now, Alstom has been building a lot of trains recently. They built the new metros for the new metro lines in Paris, and they're really nice. They're not like, what's the word? Like, not super complicated on the inside. It's basic, but it's clean and it's bright, and it has it's well designed. It's well thought out. In the longer term, both jurisdictions should ensure their future rolling stock fleets are as standardized and consistent as possible, as they generally are today. Yeah, that's important. It makes maintenance easier. It makes if something breaks down and you need to replace it, and everything is the same, you can replace it with anything, or at least if there's less variability in the rolling stock, then it's easier to replace one with another. Capable of electric and non-electric, but otherwise decarbonized traction. I mean, I think it should all be electric personally. By non-electric but otherwise decarbonized traction, I assume they're referring to hydrogen, which I wouldn't really rely on, just because it's so much less efficient. You need to use electricity to generate hydrogen. May as well just use the electricity, come on. Capable of reaching up to 160 kilometers on regional and rural routes and 200 kilometers an hour on intercity routes if the infrastructure-led interventions described above are delivered. Yeah, definitely. Part of making these rail services more attractive and attracting people to them in the long term is making them fast and efficient and attractive. Configured to provide high levels of comfort and high quality amenities such as information, Wi-Fi, charging points, good quality catering, washrooms, etc. And that kind of says it all. I don't even need to comment on that one. Yeah. Fares and ticketing. One of the most popular topics of political discourse with the railways and public transport in general is the affordability and simplicity of fares. There will always be a challenge in balancing the needs of passengers and the benefits to society arising from their decision to travel by rail and not by car, with the needs of taxpayers who ultimately fund the gap between the cost of running the railway and the revenues generated from operations. At the time of writing, each EU member state that has a railway, as well as the UK, provides some form of subsidy to passenger rail services. But in Luxembourg, they subsidise all of it, but Luxembourg is a lot smaller as well. They don't really run long distance public transport routes. In some cases, governments are covering more than half the total cost of operating passenger rail services in their jurisdictions. Some level of subsidy is therefore likely to be needed for years to come. I think it should be expected to need some amount of subsidizing. I mean, like, I think it's good for people using a service to partly pay for the cost of it, but the overall benefit to the public as a whole should be taken into account when considering whether to provide subsidies. You know, it's not just, oh, well, we're taking money away from taxpayers to pay for this thing. You're not just paying for a train, or a bus or whatever. The benefits that it provides to society as a whole aren't all monetary, and a broader view needs to be taken when considering that. The Irish government has recently reduced fares for some journeys and aspires to generally improve the affordability of public transport. I think they've done well on that. They definitely made it more affordable in recent times for sure. There may be opportunities to further reduce fares where capacity is in high supply, for example in counter-peak directions travelling out of Dublin in the morning. Varying fares on longer distance services could help match demand to supply for services that offer reservation systems. There are opportunities to further improve ticketing systems. Digital ticketing and contactless payment systems should continue to roll out across the whole island, and these should integrate well with other payment systems. I don't think we really have any digital ticketing or contactless payment systems, not on trains or buses. I know some of the TFI local link ones do, but that's the only ones really. Like you can obviously use a contactless payment method when you're buying tickets or topping up your Leap card. In Dublin, or well, in other cities as well, where you can use a Leap card. But there's not really there's no mobile phone solution or completely contactless solution. Accessibility and integration. There are opportunities to improve the accessibility and integration of the railway by improving the physical integration of rail station with other public transport and active travel options. Yeah, I mean, putting footpaths to a station, adding cycle paths, adding bus stops in short distance so that they can be easily accessed. All of those for sure. Improving the accessibility of the railway, particularly for those with mobility needs, absolutely. If you're gonna, put in all the effort to make the trains accessible and the stations accessible, you need to make the station itself, like the approach to the station, like the journey to the station, needs to be accessible as well. Aligning fare structures and concessions between both rail operators and or other public transport providers. I mean, most of the public transport in Ireland is either under TFI or associated with them in some way. Like I know the Swords Express is associated with Transport for Ireland, and I think you can use your Leap card on it. And there's probably some other services as well. So I guess that what they're suggesting or recommending here is integrating more of those other bus services. Integrating modern customer information and contactless / digital payment systems. Absolutely, it's a bit overdue really at this point. Aligning service calling patterns to enable seamless transfer to other rail and other public transport services. For sure, you want to make it convenient for people. There are examples of the initiatives listed above being delivered in both jurisdictions. For example, TransLink provides free bus services between some stations and their respective city centres, such as Newry, and Dublin's terminus stations have good connectivity to other public transport services, such as Lewis and Bus. An integrated next-generation ticketing plan is being developed by the National Transport Authority in Ireland. Alright. I wasn't aware of that. Delivering further improvements will rely on the cooperation of parties outside the rail industry. Oh, that's what I mentioned, yeah. Those other bus services, mostly private bus companies. There may be a role for government to enable these parties to work seamlessly together. I mean, some of them already work with TFI, such as the Swords Express, but then there's other private bus companies that don't, that aren't integrated into the TFI system. But integrating more of them in the future would certainly be good for everyone, really. Cross-border partnerships. As the railway grows and develops potentially more cross-border opportunities, there could be a case for strengthening cross-border working in the planning of cross-border infrastructure and rail services. This is likely to be needed if the number of cross-border passenger rail services grows from a few dozen today to over 100 in the future. Yeah, I'd love to see that. Or not just cross-border rail services, which I would of course love to see, but then also more cross-border integration. Like perhaps your nearest station isn't within your own jurisdiction, you need to cross over a border to get to it. There should be at least, like bus services that cater to those communities. Alright, so recommendations. Both jurisdictions are recommended to continue to invest in initiatives that deliver a seamless customer journey, such as improving information provisioning and catering. Definitely. I couldn't agree more. You don't even need to be that crazy with catering. You just have like a little snack bar or something. Sell some crisps, some sandwiches, some drinks. That's kind of enough for people. You don't need to have. I mean, the trolley is nice. People do enjoy the trolley, but even just like a little snack bar is enough. Information, I think they're doing pretty decent on it already, but you always want to be striving for better. Continue to benchmark and monitor service quality and deliver continuous improvement. Absolutely. Absolutely. You always want to be striving for better. Even if you're the best, which they aren't, but even if they were the best, to become complacent is to stagnate. To stagnate is to allow others to improve to your level and then surpass you. And then you're no longer the best. To become the best and to remain the best, you gotta always strive to improve. Public service contracts provide a framework for holding operators to account for delivering high levels of service. Yeah, that's good. Ensure future rolling stock specifications are aligned to the infrastructure-led interventions outlined in this review. This includes increasing the size and or speed of the rolling stock fleet to deliver higher frequency service patterns and new services. Yes, please. All of the above. I want more trains, longer trains, faster trains, all electric, please. Invest in improving integration within rail and between rail and other transport options, and put in place appropriate forums to coordinate work across institutions. I'm not sure what they quite mean by, well, I guess maybe by forums they're referring to having like cross-border meetings between like TransLink and Northern Ireland and other transport options, or sorry, transport bodies. But definitely, yeah, integration within rail and other transport options is really important. Because not everything can be served by rail. Directly, I mean. Sometimes you need to take a bus to a station, and that's okay. It just needs to be reliable. Deliver clock-based timetable calling patterns that integrate with other services. That is very good, yes. Develop cross-border structures to improve the effectiveness of cross-border infrastructure and rail service planning. Yes. I mean, I think the enterprise could serve as a good basis to create these structures and integrate them into newer services in the future. If there's any like that proposed rail link from Derry to Letterkenny, or the one from Portadown to Mullingar, they will all require some kind of planning and cooperation. And so making those structures ahead of time can really help with speeding up the process, and I think it shouldn't be overlooked. The costs of these interventions are not included in the costs presented in Chapter 5. Oh, okay. I guess it's hard to quantify the costs of them. Case study LeapCard. Oh yeah, a big fan of LeapCard. Alright, so case study LeapCard. In 2011, the Railway Procurement Agency, now part of Transport Infrastructure Ireland, TII, okay, developed a contactless smart card for automated fare collection for the Greater Dublin area. This enables users to pay for Lewis Dart, Earnard Éireann and Dublin bus services with a single card. This was branded the Leap card and has since been rolled out across many urban areas in Ireland. Yeah, it started in Dublin, but I think it does exist now in almost every city, and maybe more as well. Well, we'll see here. Yeah, so today Leap cards are widely accepted in the Greater Dublin area, the Cork metropolitan area, the Limerick and Shannon metropolitan area, Galway, Waterford, Westmeath, Drogheda. Oh, Drogheda now as well. Okay. I remember when I was a kid, it wasn't available in Drogheda, so like I didn't ever go to Drogheda, but I had friends who went to school there, and they used to complain that they couldn't use the Leap cards to get there. But I guess now you can. Sligo and Kilkenny. Yes, I've used my Leap card in Sligo. I remember that. There are plans to expand further to other towns and communities in Ireland. Good. Yeah, Leap card's great. I love Leap card. Initially, Leap card offered only a prepaid electronic wallet system for its single trip fares, but it has since developed to enable weekly, monthly, and annual subscriptions. I've never really used those. Oh no, I did actually. I used not subscription, but I used no, actually I've never used them. But that's good that they have them available. Maybe I should look into them actually, just for my own sake. It enables concessions such as student discounts and can be purchased tax-free through employers. Yes. I made good use of those student discounts when I was in college. Tickets purchased through the Leap card are generally discounted compared to cash prices, and integrated ticketing is offered in the Dublin area via flat fare system across all modes of transport. Leap card, yeah. I've made good use of that integrated ticketing in Dublin, going between bus and Dart and commuter services. Leap cards can be purchased at convenience stores offering pay zone services and topped up at any Lewis or Irish Rail ticketing machines using the iPhone, Android apps, and in convenience stores. You can also buy Leap cards from most train stations as well, like in the ticket machines. I bought them before there. The minimum top up for the card is currently €5 or £4.20. I don't know why they included that because they only use euro in the Republic. Well, I guess that's because this review was made for both the authorities in Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. Users who opt to register their card can also view their purchase history online. Yes, I've used that before. It's usually a little bit slow to update, but it is accurate. You can also view it in the Leap card top-up app. Today, the Leap card is accepted nationwide on numerous private bus operators. I know Swords Express takes it. Services all over the country, as well as on many services managed by the National Transport Authority. Leap cards are accepted across more than 13,000 devices from more than 13 different equipment suppliers. I'm not quite sure what that means. Is that referring to the machines on like the buses and stations that you tap on, or I'm not sure. That's kind of surely they couldn't mean like mobile phones, no? Probably not. To date, over 6.3 million Leap cards have been issued of all types. How many have I had? I think I've had 5. Because I had a couple when I was in school. No, I probably had more because you had to get a new one every year in college. I had at least 4 when I was in college, and then maybe 3 when I was in school. And now I've got an adult one, so I probably had about 8. The card has been used for more than 1.2 billion journeys, and the payment system underpinning the card has handled over 1.6 billion euro in top-ups. 2020 was the busiest year ever for sales of Leap cards, with over 950,000 cards issued across Ireland. That is a lot. Looking ahead, there are opportunities to expand contactless and integrated ticketing beyond current metropolitan areas to spread the benefits of integration to the rest of the island of Ireland. Yeah, I know in those, I don't know if it's all of them, but I know some of those TFI local link services accept Leap cards. This case study shows the benefits of delivering integrated public transport services across the island of Ireland and showcases the improvements that are being delivered today thanks to cross-agency working and partnerships. I'll drink to that. Cheers. That's the end of recommendations. Wow, what a chapter. That's a nice translate train there. That was a very long chapter. We got through it though. We persevered and we made it through it. Look, that whole chapter was like an entire season of a TV show, or maybe longer. Next chapter will be chapter 5, benefits and costs, and I'll see you there. Thanks very much for watching.